Hey guys, Spencer and Jake here with FASS EGR Solutions. We're in my 2019 Super Duty, and this truck does actually have a EGR filter on it. It's one of the trucks that I've been testing with for a long time. These kits will be available soon, but this is just the best test subject that we have for today's video. We're going to go over what the EGR system is doing on the truck and how the EGR filter is operating as you're driving. I figure we could do some like city driving and highway driving.
Yeah.
Get a little bit of everything. Alright, so what we have a Banks gauge that's plugged into the OBD2, and at the top we have a RPM just to show you the engine load and kind of what we're doing. The third line down we have EGR actual percentage, and this is what it's the EGR valve is doing. So 100% is all the way open, and then as you decrease in percentage, the EGR is reducing flow. And then next to that one we have the EGR commanded, so that's what the truck is telling it to do versus what it's actually doing. And the bottom two lines, that is, the left one is going to be the temperature probe in the EGR filter tube before the filter. It's about 10 inches before the filter, so this is going to give us a good representation of what kind of temperatures we're seeing. And then the one to the right of it is about 4 inches after the filter. Not really a huge concern on that one, just kind of giving a reference. And we're going to do a little bit of mixed driving, city driving, and then some highway driving. And normally whenever you start out with a cold truck, this truck is warm because I've been driving it this morning. The EGR does not actually flow through the cooler right away. It waits until the engine coolant is up to temperature before it starts going through the cooler, so you reduce condensation and you don't want a bunch of muddy soot in the cooler. So, but right now we're all the way warmed up and the EGR is flowing like it's supposed to.
So while we're driving, I'm taking a look at how this thing operates in the real world. For people that don't know, what's the simple version of the EGR filter kit?
Simple version is just keep all the as much of the soot out of the EGR system and engine itself as possible. So as we're driving, you'll see how much the EGR is actually flowing through the engine. Mixed in with that exhaust gas is unfortunately soot that a diesel engine just naturally produces.
Now, obviously there's been a lot of testing with this. It's been years in development. We know that. You've been working hard behind the scenes, getting the kit ready. Now, we know a lot of people that are looking at this, they're going to be a lot of miles, hot shotters, people that are really putting tens of thousands of miles a year on the truck. We've seen some pretty nasty results from unfiltered EGR systems pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, even on the newer trucks that are supposedly the most efficient, the best version of the emissions equipment, it's still, I mean, it's not good.
No, I mean, if you start pulling apart a truck that has 100 to 150,000 miles on it, you'll really be surprised about how much soot is actually in the entire system. Some are a lot worse and some aren't as bad, but it kind of depends on what you do with the truck, the condition of the engine. Not every engine is the same, so it can vary quite a bit, but it's all not appealing to the eyes whenever you start pulling it apart and actually looking at the components.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll insert some B-roll here so you guys will see the effects of an unfiltered EGR system on factory components after 100 and 120,000 miles. It's pretty wild. And what's interesting is that's only what was caked on to those parts. The rest of that EGR particulate matter, the soot, that would have been sent through the engine. So what you're seeing is only what was caught on the grid heater or the intake. Now, Spencer, one of the questions we get, probably as much as any other question, besides which trucks do we offer EGR filter kits for, is the cleaning process. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, So the EGR filter is a very low maintenance item. We're suspecting to see around 100,000 miles before it actually has to be pulled off and physically cleaned. But while you're driving and the EGR is flowing, the temperatures are high enough to actually burn off the soot that it is capturing as you're driving. We spent a lot of time developing the coatings with our manufacturer to start lighting off the particulate matter at a much lower temperature than you would normally need to reach. So if we look at the gauge right now, we're looking at about 100 or 830 degrees Fahrenheit into the filter, and we only need about 700 degrees to start the cleaning process. So normally, anytime your EGR is flowing, you will see those temperatures just naturally. And as you're driving normal, you're cleaning the filter.
In traditional filtration terms, that would be considered passive regen, correct?
Correct. You have two different kinds of regens. You have passive and then active. Passive is just normal driving, and it's something that happens while you're driving due to the temperatures the filter sees and then the coatings on the filter. Normally it's a much higher temperature, but like I said, we've worked with the manufacturer to get that temperature down a substantial amount. Active regen, that's when your vehicle goes into regen and starts injecting some kind of catalyst or a fuel, something to physically drive the temperature up higher and burn off the soot or any other form matter.
And you made a good reference to it, and it's something we've talked about it in different videos, but this is a new product. I mean, this is a new category. The filter included in the EGR filter kits it's not a standard filter. It's not. One of the questions we've got is, where did you find this filter that does this so efficiently, removing 85% of the particulate matter? And the truth is, we developed it. You developed it.
Yes, it is a new product, but I've been testing this for maybe more than 3 years, at least 3 years. I lose track of time, but so I've had a lot of experience with it, and we've gone through a lot of design changes to get what we want. And it's not an off-the-shelf filter. You can't just go to any supplier and buy this. You have to have it designed, and that's exactly what we did with the help of the manufacturer. And that's one of the reasons the cost is a little bit higher of the kit. It's a purpose-built filter, specialized coatings or wash coat if you want to be technical, designed specifically for what we're using it for. Along with the construction of the rest of the kit, we during early stages of testing started out with thin wall tubing and found out that it just releases too much heat. It doesn't retain the heat that you need. So then that's when we switched over to a thick wall tubing, and it's all 304 stainless. Whether it's mandrel bent or cast, it's 304 stainless. So it does a very good job of holding in the heat. Along with the thick wall tubing, you don't run into the cracking issues that a lot of people are familiar with on turbo piping, up pipes, things like that, because that's all 0.65 thousandths tubing, where the minimum we have is 120 thousandths wall thickness, and that holds in comparing the two, you gain several hundred degrees of temperature just going to thick wall tubing, and the durability,
which comes back full circle to the self-cleaning process of allowing that heat to generate, drive down the road, operate your truck normally, and you've got a really long lifespan out of that filter.
Yeah, the more temperature we can keep in the inlet tube, the more reliable and we're going to allow it to do what it's designed to do.
So, speaking of the filter, one of the questions we get is, okay, well, I'm adding a filter to the EGR system. We're keeping the EGR system intact and fully functional. What about back pressure? What am I going to do about, is the kit designed to accommodate for that?
Yeah, so, one of the nice things about this being a purpose-built filter for what we're doing is we had a lot of testing in flow and back pressure. And, testing pressure in the EGR stream is a little bit difficult because you have pressure from both sides coming from the exhaust manifold and the other end because you're feeding into boost. But we were able to do some testing. We had some very smart engineers out and did all kinds of back pressure testing, and this filter is designed where it will not increase back pressure and throw an insufficient EGR flow code. That's one of the reasons we went with a purpose-built filter. We did try some other filters that we had that issue with and had to correct it. So that's how we got where we're at today.
Now, as we're getting to more of the city driving, we're starting to hit some stoplights, some stop signs. What do you typically see in EGR functionality in city driving versus more on the highway?
Whenever I first started out, I had one thing in my mind of how the EGR would function, and I was proved completely wrong. I thought that EGR would flow most under throttle, but your stop and go traffic and heavy acceleration, your EGR is actually flowing very little to none. So, stopping at a stoplight and taking off, you are flowing some, but not as much as like steady driving. So, we're in between stoplights right now. We're only doing 37 miles an hour, and we're at 12%, and we're approaching 700. Well, we're 720 degrees of inlet temperature to the filter, and it's rising up to 800 pretty quick, 750. So at 41 miles an hour, we're cleaning the filter. EGR's flowing, and everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing. As we come off the throttle and just kind of coasting to another stoplight, you can see the temperatures are going down and the EGR flow is kind of stabilized. And then we'll come to a stoplight, and it'll kind of go up, and then it should come down. So whenever we came to the stoplight, we're at 83%, but now we're at 1%. And our temperatures are kind of going up, but we're still below 500 degrees, and you can see how much fluctuation there is in the EGR.
Now, all this filtration talk is good and the data behind it, but I think the question, a lot of our customers have asked already and will continue to ask is, well, that's great. What does that actually mean for me in the real world as far as, because we're obviously filtering, we're moving particulate matter, so we're giving extended life to certain components, or what's the end game?
The end game is extending life of basically all your components on your engine that the EGR comes into contact with. And that, mainly EGR cooler, EGR valves, but it really touches everything on the engine as far as, intake. If it, certain applications, they have grid heaters, keeps that from, plugging up. And then if you dive into the engine, soot can build up on the tops, the top ring lamp, and what that'll do over time is stop oiling and then tighten up the tolerances, and you'll end up snapping a ring, or you possibly could. I don't know how big of an issue it is on pickup trucks, but it's a fairly common issue on Class 8 trucks. So the issue is there. And then there's also the amount of soot that gets into the oil. That's one of the things that oil manufacturers have had to combat with all the new emission stuff is soot getting into the oil more than it used to, because we're pumping soot into the clean side of the engine. And the more that we can keep out of the oil, the better that oil's going to work the way it was designed to. And it's not, you're not lubricating with an oil and abrasive material. It's very small particles, but it is abrasive.
Yeah, if anyone watching has ever, pulled emissions pieces off to obviously to service them, to look at them, to fix them, that black soot, I mean, it's almost like a fine sand. So sending it throughout the EGR system and the engine is just, it's point blank unhealthy for the engine. There's no getting around it.
Yeah.
So ideally, removing 85% of it, we'll see a drastic increase in the life of those components. Now, speaking of, this truck obviously has a 2019 Powerstroke. That kit's coming out soon. I don't want to overpromise or tease things, but what's next? Obviously, there's a lot of questions around what these kits will be available for in the future.
So yeah, the 6.7 Powerstroke, that is in process. Those are cast tubes, so the process has been very very slow. It's just not a fast process, but it is coming very soon. The next application will be the 6.7 Cummins. We're actually finishing up machining some parts for that application, and then move into prototyping of that kit. It's not going to be as easy of an install as the Fords or the GMs, but there'll be some additional benefits to that kit. And then DD15 pack Rs will kind of come at the same time as the 6.7 Cummins. Now the Class 8 Cummins, or heavy duty Cummins, that will come after DD15s and pack Rs, because, believe it or not, the Cummins is actually the hardest application to do, because they mate their EGR coolers to the manifold. They don't have a tube that you can pull out and plumb into our filter. So the easiest vehicle to work on is the hardest to design a kit for, unfortunately.
Well, you did bring it up. So you mentioned installation. Currently, these kits are shipping for 2017 and up L5P Duramax, aluminum, or I should say 6.7 Powerstroke. 17 to 19 is coming soon, very soon. Probably by the time you're watching this, it will be available. What's the installation like?
On the 6.7 Powerstrokes, they are honestly a little easier than the Duramax, because you don't have to pull out the wheel liner and the 30 bolts that hold it in. You really just pull out the intake tube for the Powerstroke, and mount a bracket and put some plumbing in there. Well under an hour install.
I mean, short install time carries over to the L5P too. It's not very intense from what I've seen.
No, the L5P is it's very quick. You just gotta squeeze yourself in the wheel well, which isn't bad, but a lot better to work on top of the vehicle than on the side of it. So far, those two applications are very, very easy installs.
I know we've filmed a couple of them, and obviously it can be different for everybody depending on your experience with these trucks. But I think taking our time, we've been at 45 minutes total, and that's filming, interrupting. So
yeah, get you a couple beer breaks in there. All right, so we're getting ready to get on the highway. We're going to demonstrate some EGR characteristics while you're driving on the highway. It's a lot more consistent on the highway than in city driving. I'll see if I can set cruise control at some point. And we're doing like 68 miles an hour. The EGR valve's about 10 to 20%, kind of fluctuating, and our inlet temperature is 830 degrees, which is well above the temperature that we need to start cleaning the filter. And as we give it more throttle and going up a hill, you actually see the EGR starts to go down. The temperature goes down because the EGR is not flowing like it would. And as soon as I let off the throttle like that and just apply a little bit, the temperature starts to come back, the flow starts to come back, and we're getting ready to go down a hill, so the flow is going to go back down as we're kind of coasting down. But then we got to
seeing right now is how they're going to spend the majority of their time.
Yeah. So we're gonna accelerate on this straight stretch. Well, no, we're not, because of the car. But we'll just hold it steady, and we'll see the temperature start to go up. And we're just holding a steady speed. We're driving a little slow because of traffic, but we're gonna start increasing. We're at 850 degrees. You know, approaching 900 degrees of inlet temperature. And that's only at, you know, the EGR valve's only at 16%. So it doesn't take much driving to fire off the element and get it to, you know, start burning off the soot. At a steady speed, flat ground, we're at 900 degrees coming out of the manifold going to the EGR filter. The flow is pretty consistent, but now we're going down a hill. We're just going to try to hold this speed for a little while and watch the EGR and see what it's doing. But, you know, we're climbing temperatures up towards 800 degrees. And it's the same regardless if you have a trailer or not, from what I have seen. It doesn't really matter how heavy you're loaded. Obviously, whenever you're loaded heavy, the temperatures are higher, but the EGR is still kind of doing the same pattern.
So something that some people might be wondering about a kit like this, an EGR filter kit, is okay, well, I'm staying emissions on. I might do, you know, an emissions on tune, a little more performance, a little more responsiveness out of the truck. How might some emissions on tuning affect this kit?
So this truck actually has emissions on tuning, and one of the main reasons they did that because when we were doing all the testing, we wanted to see the difference in an OEM calibration EGR function and you know, a tuned EGR function. And as far as the function goes, we didn't see any difference. You know, with all the testing that we did, there was basically no difference. But what you will have with emissions on tuning, even though it's emissions on and it works very well, is if you add more power, you're going to create more soot. So with emissions on tuning, it runs better, you know, get some better fuel mileage, but there is more soot going through your EGR, into the cooler, into the engine, into the oil, things like that.
So if anything, it's more of a benefit if you're doing some type of performance tuning.
Yes, and we're getting off the highway, and, you know, we're 880 degrees. We pretty much stayed there for the majority of the highway run. And one thing I did notice during all our testing and just driving this truck over the years is whenever it gets cooler out, it seems like the EGR does flow less. It still does flow, but it flows less than like on a hot day, and I would assume that has something to do with air density and,
Yeah.
you know, a cleaner burn.
More thorough combustion.
Yeah.
All right, so coming into a heavy acceleration scenario here.
Yeah, I guess if I have to. So under heavy acceleration, you see basically no EGR flow. So that's full throttle. We're at like 1%, but as we let off the throttle, the EGR comes back. And I would say within, you know, 5 to 10 seconds being on the highway moving, you know, we're well past the temperature that we need to start the cleaning process. Kind of goes the same way for the city driving. You know, after you take off from a stoplight, you get up to that 700 plus degrees pretty quick.
And really from what we've seen, you know, since we've been above that 50 mile an hour mark, the majority of the time has been spent temperature-wise in that cleaning range.
Yeah, I think even when we were like 37 miles an hour, we were above 700 degrees.
All right, guys, that wraps it up for today. We hope you guys learned something. Hope the video was informative for you. If you have any questions about FASS EGR filter kits, Visit FASSEGRsolutions.com or contact us today.